Hello everyone and welcome to the chapter number 43 of Blender Master Course Geometry Nodes Part 2 of Creating a Candy World. In the previous chapter, we begin with the creation of this candy world in Blender with the help of geometry nodes. And in this chapter, we'll be understanding all these geometry nodes in complete detail and will also use them to finalize our scene. And yes, if you are new to this course, then do check out the previous 43 chapters from the link of the playlist in the pinned comment. So we are back in the scene that we created in the last chapter. And in this one, we'll first start with understanding how the curves work in Blender, and that too by using geometry nodes. So first of all, I'll switch to the solid mode, and now you can add any object in the scene because we'll then convert it into a curve by using geometry nodes. So I will press Shift plus A, go to Mesh, and we'll add a plane, press G and X and move it over here. To view it properly, let's go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, and now here we have the plane. To understand the concept of curves in Blender, let's also add a curve object directly in the 3D viewport. So press Shift plus A, go to curve and select the Bezier curve. Press G and X and move it over here, and now we have this Bezier curve and this plane which will convert into a curve with the help of geometry nodes. So go to the geometry nodes editor and click on the new button. Now to get a curve instead of the plane, press Shift plus A, go to curve, and in primitives select the Bezier segment. Let's place it over here, and with this we have this default Bezier curve created with the help of geometry nodes. Now in this node we have many options which help us to control the curve. For example, the first one is the resolution, which determines the number of points in the curve. If I reduce it to a very low value, then the number of points will reduce, and as a result the curve looks straight. However, to make it look like a real curve, we'll increase the resolution. Now the next thing that you have here is the start, and using this you can control the position of the starting control point of the curve. To understand it in a better way, I'll select this Bezier curve, tab into the edit mode, and now here you can see that these are the two control points of the curve, and whenever I select any particular control point, these two handles will also appear, using which you can change the rotation of your curve. Similarly, if I select this curve which we created with this Bezier segment node and try to change the start values, then you will notice that the position of the first control point will change. Similarly, you have this end parameter which determines the position of the end control point of the curve. So if I change it, you will notice that the position of the end control point is changing. To understand it in a better way, I'll select this curve, tab into the edit mode, and this is the control point that we were talking about. So if I press G and X and move it like this, you will get similar results which you got by using the end parameter in the Bezier segment node. Now in this node we have two more options, the start handle and the end handle, and these will help to define the shape of the curve by changing the position of the handles of the curve. So if I go for the first one, which is the start handle, and try to change its position, then you will notice that the shape of the curve will change. Similarly, if I select this curve, tab into the edit mode, then with this control point selected, if I try to move this handle in the X axis, then in this case you will get similar results. Then the next parameter that you have here is the end handle, and this one allows you to control the position of the end handle of the curve. So if I try to change the position like this in the Y axis, then the position of the end handle will change. Similarly, if I select this one, tab into the edit mode, select this end control point, then select this handle and move it upwards in the Y axis, then in this case also you will get a similar result. So in simple words, you have two options to control the position of the control points, which is the start and the end, and then you have two more options to control the position of the handles, which is the start handle and the end handle. Now one thing that you might notice here is that in the edit mode, for any control point we have two handles, one is on the left and the other one is on the right, and to control these handles individually we have another node which is the set handle position node. To add it in the geometry nodes editor, press Shift plus A, go to curve, and in the right category select the set handle positions. We'll place it after the Bezier segment node, and now with this node I can control the left and the right handles of the control points of the curve separately. So from this option you can control that the changes should be applied to which particular handle, the left handle or the right handle. Then to make the changes, you can go to the offset socket and try to change the value. Right now by default the left handle is selected, so whatever changes I make in the offset will be applied to the left handles. So suppose I change the second value, which is the Y axis, to something like 3, and then to achieve the same result manually with this curve, I'll select it, tab into the edit mode, then first I'll select this control point, and this handle is the left handle of the control point. So to achieve the same result as this one, I'll move it upwards in the Y axis by 3 meters. Then I'll select this control point, select the left handle, and we'll move this one also by 3 meters in the Y axis. So press G, Y and 3 and then enter to confirm. Now we have moved both the left handles in the Y axis by 3 meters, and you can see that we got the same result which we created with the help of this geometry node. So by using the set handle positions node, you can simply control the structure of the curve by changing the offset of the left and right handles. And now let's come back to the scene. So I'll delete these two curves from here, and now we'll begin with the creation of a cupcake for our scene. So let's first add a cylinder and then we'll modify into a cupcake. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh and add the cylinder, press G, X and place it over here. Now let's tab into the edit mode, then to scale it up in the X and Y axis, press S and Shift plus Z and scale it up like this. Then left click to finalize. Now to make it look better, I'll select the top edge loop by holding Alt and left clicking here, and will apply the bevel effect by pressing Ctrl plus B and moving my cursor away like this. Now press 3 for the face select mode, select the top face, press G and Z and move it down like this. Now for the top part, press I to insert the face, E to extrude it in the Z axis like this, press I to insert again, and let's move this face slightly upwards in the Z axis. So we'll keep it to something like this. Now let's apply the subdivision surface modifier to it. So let's come out of the edit mode, go to the modifier properties, click on add modifier, and in generate, select the subdivision surface. Let's increase the levels viewport to something like 2, and to make it look realistic again, tab into the edit mode, press Ctrl plus R to add a loop cut here, then left click and we'll place it downwards here. Let's add one more loop cut by pressing Ctrl plus R, then left click and place it over here. Now let's also scale up this part at the top. So for this, press 3 for the face select, then I'll select this top face, and to increase the selection, press Ctrl and the numpad plus button like this. Then press S and scale it up like this. Let's also move it slightly downwards. So press G, Z and move it down like this. Now let's also add some whipped cream at the top, and for this we'll be using the spiral node in the geometry nodes editor. So click on the new button. So press Shift plus A, go to curve, and in primitives select the curve spiral node. Let's place it over here, and to view the spiral in the scene, hold on Ctrl, Shift and left click on this node. Now to convert it into a mesh, we'll add the curve to mesh node. So press Shift plus A, go to curve, and in operations select the curve to mesh node. Let's place it over here, and for the profile curve we'll be using the curve circle node. So press Shift plus A again, go to curve, and in primitives select the curve circle node, place it over here and connect the curve socket to the profile curve. Now let's reduce the radius from here. So we'll keep it to something like 0.3 or 0.4. Then because we are making the whipped cream, so we need it to be inverted, and for this I'll change the height from positive 2 meters to something like -1, and now we have inverted the height. Then to make it look like whipped cream, I'll go to the start radius value and try to change it. Similarly, we'll also change the end radius like this. So you can try to change these values like the height, the start and the end radius in the curve spiral node, and then the radius parameter in the curve circle node. Also, to fill this empty space at the starting and the end, you can turn on the fill caps from here. Now to place it on the top of the cupcake, we can use the distribute points on faces node. However, since we understood about the sample index node in the previous chapter, so we'll be using that node to place it on the top of the cupcake. And yes, it will be like a homework for you to tell in the comments how you would have used the distribute points on faces node to place this on the top of the cupcake. But for now, let's add the sample index node here. So press Shift plus A, go to geometry, and in sample, select the sample index node. Let's place it over here. Now to view both the cupcake and this whipped cream in the scene, we'll be adding the join geometry node. So press Shift plus A, go to geometry and select the join geometry node, place it over here, connect the geometry socket to the join geometry, then take the mesh socket of the curve to mesh node and connect it to the join geometry. To view the output, I'll take the geometry socket here and connect it to the group output. Then I'll delete the viewer nodes from here, and now here we have the cupcake and the whipped cream placed below it. And in order to place it on this top face, we'll be using the sample index node. Now we want to get the position of the top face. So first of all, I'll change the data type to vector. Then in the domain, I'll select the face, and to retrieve the information about the position of the face, I'll be connecting the value socket to the position node. So press Shift plus A, go to geometry, and in read, select the position node, place it over here and connect it to the value socket. Then to place the whipped cream at that particular location, which it will give as the output, we'll first add the set position node after this. So press Shift plus A, go to geometry, and in the right category, select the set position node. Let's place it over here and connect the value socket of the sample index node to the offset in the set position. And now the whipped cream will get placed at the position of the face having the index value equal to 0. Now one way to know the index value of the top face is to keep on changing the index value from here and wait till you reach the top, but a better way is to go to the edit option here, then go to the preferences, then in interface, turn on the developer extras option. Now I'll close this window. Now tab into the edit mode, and here on the top you will find this icon which is the mesh edit mode. So if I select it, then here in the developer category I have this option of turning on the indices, and this will display the index number of any selected vertex, edge or face. So I'll turn it on, and now here you can see that since I have selected this top face, so it is also displaying the index number of the selected face. So I'll use this index number in the index parameter here, and it looks like this because this subdivision surface modifier is placed above the geometry nodes modifier. To fix this, click here, then drag it and place it below the geometry nodes modifier. And now the whipped cream is placed on the position of this top face. To get back the node system, select the geometry nodes modifier from here, and now to move it upwards, we'll be using the transform geometry node. So press Shift plus A, go to geometry, and in operations, select the transform geometry node. Place it after the set position node, and now if I go to the translation in the Z axis and try to increase it, you will notice that the position of the whipped cream is also changing. Now to place it perfectly, we'll do some changes in the parameters of the spiral node and also the transform geometry. So first of all, we'll move it slightly downwards in the Z axis so that this ending part of the whipped cream is not visible. So go to the translation in the Z axis and reduce it slightly to something like 0.6 meters. Then to increase the number of rotations, I'll go to the rotation value here and let's increase it to something like 4. And now because this part of the whipped cream is intersecting with the cupcake, so I'll go to the end radius and slightly reduce it to something like 1.05 or 1.06, and this is how it looks now. Let's also make it colorful by adding some material to it. So turn on the render view, then in the geometry nodes editor, we'll add the set material node. So press Shift plus A, go to material and select the set material node. We'll place it after the transform geometry node and we'll use it to assign the material to the whipped cream. So go to the material properties, click on the new button, and since we have selected the original cupcake, therefore this default material will get applied to the lower part of the cupcake. So if I go to the base color and try to change the color from here, then that specific color will get applied to this part of the cupcake. However, for the whipped cream part, we need to create a new material again and assign this material.004 with the help of the set material node. So I'll click here and select the material.004. Let us change the color of this material to something like pink, and for the lower part of the cupcake, I will change this window to the shader editor from here, and now for giving it some texture, we'll be using the magic texture node. So press Shift plus A, go to texture and select the magic texture. Let's place it over here and connect the color socket to the base color. Now you can change the texture with the help of the depth parameter from here, and if you want to reduce the colors or add only some specific color to the texture, then for this you can add the color ramp node. So press Shift plus A, go to converter and select the color ramp, place it over here, and now with the help of these pointers, we can adjust the color of the texture. So first of all, change the interpolation mode to constant, then I'll change the color of the first pointer by increasing the brightness, and I'll change it to light blue color. Then for the second color, select this pointer, let's move it over here, and I'll change its color to the yellow color. And if you want to change the scaling of the texture, then select the magic texture, press Ctrl plus T to add the texture coordinate and the mapping node, then take the object socket and connect it to the vector. And now if I reduce the scale to something like 1, then now the texture looks like this. So you can try to change the scale or the position of these pointers or their colors from here, and in this way you can make your texture look better. Right now it looks perfect, so we'll finalize this. However, one more thing to notice here is that the texture that we created for the outside part of the cupcake is also applied to this part below the whipped cream. And to fix this, tab into the edit mode, and with this top face selected, press Ctrl and numpad plus to increase the selection. Then I'll go to the material properties, select this pink material and click on the sign button. And now you can see that we have all the materials perfectly applied to the cupcake. Now let us also finalize our scene. So go to the solid mode, press 7 to go to the top view, and we'll be placing this cupcake on different places of this candy world. So press G and move it over here, press Shift plus D to create a duplicate, and let's place this one over here. Similarly, let's create one more duplicate, place it here, and one last duplicate at this point. Now we have placed these 4 cupcakes in our candy world, and let's also move them slightly upwards. So press GZ and move it up like this. Let's do the same with this one. So press GZ and move it over here. Then I'll select this one, press GZ and place it upwards, and in the end I'll select this cupcake, press G and Z and move it over here. And with this, our scene is now completely ready. So let's go to the render view and let us do one more thing, which is to give some simple material to the base. So I'll select it, go to the geometry nodes editor from here, and if you remember, we use this grid node connected to the set position to create this base. And to assign the material, I'll take the set material node over here, press Shift plus D to create a duplicate and connect it after the set position node. Then go to the modify properties and create a new material. Let's assign this material.005 to the base of the candy world. So click here and select the material.005. Now to modify the material, we'll go to the shader editor from here, and now to give it some random texture, we'll add the noise texture here. So press Shift plus A, go to texture and select the noise texture from here. Now press Ctrl plus T to connect it to the texture coordinate and the mapping node, and now I'll take this factor socket and connect it to the base color. Also take the object socket and connect it to the vector, and now to give some color to the texture, we'll add the color ramp. So press Shift plus A, go to converter and select the color ramp, place it after the noise texture, change the interpolation to constant, and now by using these pointers, we can change the color of this texture. So for the first color, we'll change it to the white color by increasing the brightness. Then for the second color, we'll change it to something like brown color. So let's take this over here, then reduce the brightness in order to make it look like chocolate brown. Now by changing the position of these pointers, we can adjust the look of the texture. Also Also, you can use the scale parameter in the noise texture in order to change the scaling of the texture. So if I reduce it to something like 1, then this is how the texture looks. Let's also bring the second pointer slightly here, and now the texture looks perfect. Now to render the final image, we'll first place our camera at this position. So for this, press Ctrl, Alt and 0 on the numpad, then turn on the lock camera to view. Let's adjust the camera properly, and now this is how our final scene looks. To render the image, click on the render button and select the render image. Now this is the final rendered version. If you want, you can do more changes in the scene, like try to increase the density of these candies, try to change the texture on the base, and in this way, you can make your scene look better. And with this, we come to the end of this chapter. Today we learned about some new geometry nodes, and we even finalized this scene. So our next chapter will be the chapter number 44, Geometry Nodes, Part 1 of creating a magical shield scene. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming chapters. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.